Eagle County Capital Improvement Board meeting to order. The meeting date is today, May the 25th, and it's 9 o'clock. Mr. Auditor, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Franco?
Here.
Mrs. Conway?
Here.
Mr. Marvel?
Here.
Mr. Schweitzer?
Here.
Mr. Bennett?
Here.
Mr. Patterson?
Dave called me last night and said that he had some more personal testing to do this morning, so he would not be here today. Thank you, Jim. Are there any additions or revisions to today's agenda? Hearing none? Hearing none? Move ahead. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from the April 27th meeting? Okay. If so, is there an approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Minutes have been approved. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Minutes are approved. Item number 5 under old business, 5.1 is an update on construction completion with Brian Cloister.
Good morning.
Morning.
Not used to this room. I'm not sure where I'm supposed to go, but I'll stand over here. So I passed out a document titled Open Items List. I thought I'd take a moment and just kind of walk you through some of the remaining items left to complete the convention center. We'll just run through each one. Item 1, install 2 additional exit lights. So who was it, Danielle? The state Department of Homeland Security. Department of Homeland Security visited the facility and had a couple requests. One was to add 2 additional exit lights at the west end of the
hallway there.
Of the hallway here. We ordered those. I believe one's installed, and then they held off installing the second one yesterday because of the job fair, but that'll be done this week. The other item they had was item 5. 2 of our the 2 fire alarm devices in the kitchen are red. The remainder in the building are white, and they asked that we change those to white. So those are on order right now. Item 2, garage light fixtures for courtyard area. That installation is underway. They've got the brackets up, and they'll start putting the light fixtures up today. If you remember, that was a change order that was added probably 6 months ago, and the fixtures just came in last week, so that work's underway. Item 3, access control for the Hilton Garden Inn door. So if you walk down this hallway and turn to go into the connector to the Hilton Garden Inn, there's one door where we added a handicap operator. Well, that operator and the control of that door is going to be controlled by Hilton Garden Inn. So really all of our work is done. They are waiting for the parts to allow them to control the door, and those are scheduled to arrive next week. So that'll wrap things up there. Item 4, added fence at the garage near the copper bar. That's scheduled to arrive on or around June 6th, so about 2 weeks away. Item 5 I spoke to, that's the white fire alarm devices, which are on order. I don't have a delivery date for those as of yet. Item 6 is, as you enter the parking garage, there's a sign that was part of the sign package that really allows you to communicate whether that center lane is being used for entering or exiting the garage. It's a lane that can be used, kind of a flex lane. The sign company, which Nations Group coordinated all that. The sign's installed, it's wired, but there's some difficulties figuring out how to control whether it says enter or exit. We're working with the sign company to try and figure it out. don't have too many ideas, so we're working with the electrical engineer to try and solve that problem, but that's ongoing. Item 7, O&M manuals, operation and maintenance manuals. Picture a probably 1,000-page document that's really the instruction manual for the building. Tells you how to maintain really every product in the building, how to operate it. It's complete. We've sent it on to CSO for review. It came back about 2 weeks ago with some comments, some requested revisions. We're in the final stages of gathering that information, and then we'll resubmit it, hopefully, maybe yet this week. And that'll,
Or will that be both in written and electronic form?
yeah, electronic form. We can print it out if anybody wants it, but typically everybody just wants it electronically. Item 8, so we're getting 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 are all complete, but I'll walk you through those. Item 8, repaint the garage striping. So the striping was called to be painted white, and it just, you know, to Neil, I know John and others, it was really hard to see. Kind of the white paint on top of a light gray concrete. So we just paid for the striping company to restripe it in yellow. It really wasn't their fault. They did what they were asked to do. It's not your fault. You know, you want a garage that you can see the stripes. So we took care of that, and I think that was done last week. Like to Neil's comments, I think it's much better.
Oh, much better, much better.
So that's done. Items 9 and 10 are really just components that go on the rooftop air handling units. It's a added bird screen and a hail guard. Those items have been installed. And then items 11 and 12 were also from the Department of Homeland Security. We had, I think, 2 or 3 spare sprinkler heads. They wanted 6. Those are installed in a cabinet now in the water room. And then they wanted a label on the pressure gauges on the sprinkler system that stated the date of installation, and that's since been done. So with a little bit of luck, I would say in the next 2 to 3 weeks, all of these items should be closed out. So, and I would add, none of these are really punch list items. I think these are all kind of added items. So really happy with the completion of the punch list, and like I said, in a couple of weeks, I think we'll have this list taken care of as well. That's really all I've got.
Where's the pictures?
No pictures, it's Bill. If you want to see it, you just gotta walk around.
Board have any questions? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Stick around.
Don't go anywhere.
Still under old business, an update on convention center management. It's Neil.
Good morning.
Morning.
So this was our first month actually operating. So we had a really busy and exciting April. So you have a packet in front of you, and I've got it on the TV so you can see it as well. So just a little event summary for the month. This is obviously our first month during the month of April. We hosted 13 separate events. This accounted for 18 total event days through the month. Total attendance for the month was estimated at a little over 1,800. Several of our events were non-revenue generating because they tied into the grand opening. So we didn't have clients that were actually like paying for those events. So in a normal month, those events would have generated more money, but we figure our gross revenue was right around $25,000. So these are just some of the events that we held in the month of April. We had our grand opening. We had 30 local businesses participate in the Business Expo. We estimate that we had about 1,000 people that were here over the course of the 3 hours. We had a lot of really great media coverage from print to TV, and we had a lot of social media posts. So we had a lot of local vloggers who did their own video posting, social media, went through the whole building, and so which was really neat to see just random individuals doing their own thing, reporting on the convention center. It was kind of exciting to go home that day and start seeing all that on Facebook. Garmung held their quarterly meeting here. It was a one-day meeting for about 50 attendees, and I think we're rebooking that for June as well. Thank you, Brian. Highland Associates had a one-day meeting that was 30 attendees. Indiana Connections Academy had 3 separate events. They held 2 in April and then one ended the very first week of May. Each event was over the course of 4 to 5 days. So they took up 3 and 4 meeting rooms for each of those events, and what they did was I-step testing. So they had students that were coming in during different periods of the day to do their testing. So they had, I don't know what you call them, but they're testing associates. They weren't allowed to leave the building, so they had to monitor, you know, all of their testing and everything. But it was a really good event for them, and I think they'll be back again as well. Then we had our grand opening gala, which had about 300 attendees. That was our very first large banquet that we did. Wabash Breast Cancer Survivors, Inc. had their monthly board meeting here, which was about 15 attendees. Then we had our CIB meeting here. St. Patrick's Kids Field Trip. So some of the kids from St. Patrick's School had a field trip across the street over at the museum. Emily was a part of that group, and so they had a large pizza lunch here that day. So it's made a really great location for them to just walk right across the street and have lunch. So we had, I think it was about, was it 30 kids and 20 adults, or 40 kids and 20 adults, something like that. So we put paper down on some of the tables and crayons out so the kids could color while they eat, kind of keep them occupied a little bit. And I think they had a good time. It was nice to see a bunch of kids in the building versus just regular meetings, so that was something fun. Boys and Girls Club had their annual kickoff for kids, annual fundraising dinner. So we had about 312 attendees for that. Then we had the Western Indiana Workforce Development meeting, which was just a meeting for their department for 30 people. Ruoff Mortgage had a catered meeting for 13, and then Eugene V. Debs Foundation had a one-day meeting for 15 people. So month by month, I'll start showing you stats as to how events stack up comparatively against each other, you know. So once we get into April, May, June, you'll start to see how many trade shows did we do for each month. And we'll start to see where our trends will lie. You know, is it in meetings, is it in banquets, and we'll see, you know, which events are producing the most revenue, and we'll track this through the year. So as we have more history, you'll start to get a little bit more graphs in here, so you can kind of go through and I'm very analytical, so this is how I like to look at things, you know, when we go through events and try to analyze, you know, what's bringing more revenue, how many events are we doing and such. During the month of April, the sales team contracted 13 new events, which totaled a little over $26,000 in future revenue and generates about 50 hotel rooms. 6 of these events were in the month for the month bookings, so which means out of those 13, almost half of those were short-term bookings, where we got a call, someone wanted to book an event, it took place within the next 2 weeks. So right now, we have a lot of short-term business, so we might look at our calendar for the next month, and we might not have a bunch of events on there, but then today we get a call, we've got someone who wants to come in tomorrow. The other day, for instance, we had a call for the Dallas Baptist baseball team. They were here for 3 days. So that brought in about $6,000 worth of revenue for us, but it was a very, very short-term booking. You know, so we're booking it quick, making our food orders quick, trying to see what can we accommodate in 2 days so that we can get all these ball players fed. So we'll have a lot of business that will come up short-term like that. Our team is currently working on 47 tentative leads and repeat business for 2022 and future years, which totals about $512,000 in potential revenue, and then we've got a 726 estimated hotel room nights. Now these are just prospective events, these are just groups that we've sent proposals to. We have 20 firm events, and which means we've issued license agreements for, which total about $78,000 in revenue and an estimated 700 hotel room nights. So these are contracts that should be coming back. So for 2022, indefinite contracts that are taking place this year And this is looking at this point forward, not what we've done in the past, so I'm always trying to stay, at current date moving forward. We've got $95,000 in gross revenue on the books. In contracts sent, we've got $62,000 in gross revenue, and then tentative proposals for this year alone, we've got $347,000 in gross revenue. 2023, definite events, we've got $80,000 in revenue. Contracts sent, we've got one that's out, which is worth $8,800, and then tentative proposals, we've got almost $155,000 in just proposals that are out, and then 2024, you can see where we are right now. Total funnel, looking at today forward, or last week forward through 2024 is the last period that we have on the calendar. We have $767,000 in potential business in our funnel. That includes definite events and everything that's still prospective. So anyone who calls us, and we kind of classify things in a couple areas if it is prospective. We have our tentative business, which we call it a T1 internally. We've sent them a proposal. We feel like it's gonna happen, meets the booking guidelines, and it's a really good piece of business. Or we've got tentative second option, which means it's a second option because maybe we don't feel like it would happen, maybe it's not realistic, maybe it's conflicting with another event that they're not open to, looking at another date, so you have to choose one. So when I put this together, I'm looking at the tentative first option business, because those T2s typically will drop off the calendar. So if we start to not feel good about a piece of business and we think, well, you know what, maybe they're competing with a couple other cities and it doesn't look good for us, we might reduce that status if we feel like it's not gonna work, because I don't wanna count those numbers in my projections. Site tours with potential clients. We'll continue to do site tours all the time. Hamilton Center was here. They did a site tour with their office, and then they actually hosted an event after that site tour. Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology was here. They brought several departments with them. We actually have 3 events on our calendar right now for their different departments as well. Special Olympics, B&B Foods, Union Hospital, King Media Productions, Thompson Thrift, Jabalt. We've had several wedding couples that have come in. Bloomington Chamber of Commerce came in. We're actually a member. We've been participating in some of their events to try to get businesses from there to come here too. So their chamber came out and toured the facility, and they were actually very excited to see the building and see what they might be able to do here in the future too. We have the Wabash Valley Coin Collectors and Steel Dynamics. Training is kind of an ongoing thing right now. We had Google Analytics training on our digital software this past month, and our JL, who created our website, has gone through training with Pam to be able to keep up with our website internally now. So that's now been turned over to us as well. Then you can see here promotions and advertising. We had our Mother's Day ad that we ran last month and posted the beginning of the month. I think our Mother's Day, would we make around $3,100 in gross revenue for our Mother's Day brunch. We had about, I think we had about 120, 130. So we had some walk-ins, which we were a little worried that we might have to turn away some walk-ins, because we shut off ticket sales at a certain time frame, and we knew we would get a few walk-ins, so we prepared for up to a certain amount, and then the day before we started getting all kinds of calls, so we started getting a little worried that we might have too many walk-ins that we would have to turn away, because we wanted to make sure we accommodated all of our ticket holders first. And we had all of them show up right about the same time, and then we had a few sets of walk-ins that came in, and we were able to accommodate everyone, and it turned out really nice. With every event that we do, we get a few little lessons learned, and how can we do this and that better. But we'll be doing the Father's Day lunch. So you can see our ad that's running here. We've got that in several different places. But we'll be doing that, and then that'll have like 3 different time slots, so that we can sell tickets for different time slots and then cut it off at a certain amount of tickets that we know we can handle. But we had a lot of radio ads that led up to the grand opening. Pepsi ran a lot of ads for us for the opening gala, and they also did Mother's Day brunch. Good live interview with WTWO Channel 2. Just lots of really good advertising that we had out there. And then there's just a little shot in the news, you know, how we were covered. The grand opening events, I saw media coverage was all over. So, you know, it was on all the news stations. I saw it that evening after, I saw it in the mornings before the event. They were here during the event, and then the evening news, there was still a lot of coverage. So I feel like media really picked us up quite well. Corporate support during our first events, with having a brand new building, brand new staff. None of our staff is Spectra employees, and so it's been a lot of training and trying to figure out what works for this building. It works different in every building. Back of house is different in every building. Kitchens are different in every building. They all have different procedures, and so we're trying to figure out what works for us. But this is a list of the folks that we had that came in for some of the events that we hosted. The gentleman in the top is Al Beltranena. He is from the IX Center in Cleveland. He's the general manager of food and beverage there, so he helped us with all of our front of house catering during the grand opening event. So he was here for that. I think he was here on the 7th, on the night of the 7th. This is him in the back pouring all the champagne glasses as we were getting ready to bring those out. And then the other gentleman in the corner down here, this is Stefan. He came from Utah Valley. He's a banquet manager there, and he's also an executive chef. And he came down to help us in the kitchen and in front of house. So when he was done in the kitchen, he was front of house helping as well. So we had lots of staff that came in from different facilities to help facilitate our events that we had. We just wanted to make sure we had enough staff that knew what they were doing as we were trying to train people still, you know, on the job, and so that they know how to take things out. So it really helped having some other quarterbacks in the room. On the employment front, we recently filled our banquet manager position. This is was filled by Ian Pinwell. He comes to us, he's actually a native of Terre Haute, but spent the last 4 years at French Lake Resort, and was wanting to get back to his family here. He's been an amazing addition to our team. Sales manager Shelby Reed just started in May. She's just hit the ground running, couldn't ask for a better sales manager. Operations manager, we promoted Mark Ryer from a part-time operations position to a full-time position. And then our part-time sales coordinator has been filled by Brianna Tyron, who she is a full-time student, and so she's got, on her days off, she's working here doing sales with us. Currently interviewing for a marketing assistant / administrative assistant. I think we've got a few candidates that are narrowed down. We actually had this position filled, and then the candidate took a position at one of the universities. He was actually has an editing background, and he got a sports editing position at one of the colleges. So it was right up his alley. It was a perfect job for him. So we couldn't blame him for taking that on. Ongoing will be part-time line cooks, dishwashers, kitchen folks, part-time banquet servers, and part-time operations setup housekeeping. So we'll continue to hire for those positions. We want to build our stock of employees so that we don't have to use temp agencies. Right now our temp agencies have really pulled through for us. However, the cost is much higher, and as we develop our part-time employees, they become vested in us. They understand how we operate. They start to learn the events rather than having to train it over and over when we get temp employees. But our temp employees have been fabulous. And after so many hours, we can hire some of them on. So we have a list of the ones that we really enjoy working with. So when we do request them, we ask for specific employees a lot of the time. In operations, we have a few outstanding items still. All of our radios are expected to be in June. This is, you know, how we communicate between events rather than having cell phones on us. We're still waiting on our 6-foot, some of our 6-foot tables and cocktail tables coming from Mighty Light, which will be here the end of May. And then some basic maintenance items that are still on back order. And just in the operations department, they've been interviewing for the operations manager, which was just filled. They've had a lot of calls and meetings with Republic, Ecolab, of course in fire and safety, just kind of going through what are the maintenance things that we need to be taken care of in the building, and just kind of looking forward to getting services set up. We did meet with the Department of Homeland Security for our annual event permit. We had a small list of things that we needed to correct, and so we've worked on that, and they'll be out again, I believe, on June 6th to go through the building to see what's been updated. One of those things that does need to be corrected is with our signage package, we need to have an occupancy plaque in each one of the rooms. So ISF Signs I've reached out to them to get a quote, and they also have a quote for the sign to go at the north entrance. They've drawn up a sign to go on that wall, but then there's a couple things that were missing from that quote that I need them to adjust and then resend. So as soon as I have that, I'll send that to you. But one of the things we'll do in the meantime is we laminated some occupancy signs that we're just gonna put in all the rooms, which will suffice with the agent who came in. So he said that would be fine until we have our permanent signage. And then we're in our pre-planning stages for Micromain training and setup. Micromain is our work order system. So once we have all of our manuals and like the big binder, the big electronic document that Brian has, this company will actually help us catalog everything in the building. So anything that has a function, dishwasher, valves, hoses, mechanical parts, everything will be cataloged and a maintenance schedule will be created, and it'll all go into a system called Micromain so that we can stay on top of all of the preventative maintenance. And then anytime we have an issue, like say there's a plumbing issue in a restroom and maybe Martell goes in there, she can put in a work order ticket and we'll shoot it right off to our maintenance person and Brady, and they can see, okay, we've got a plumbing issue. Or if it goes to an outside vendor, they'll automatically get that and they'll know that they have something that they need to correct. So we're excited to get that set up here really soon. She'll be coming in June to start cataloging and train our team on how to start entering all of that information. Through the month of April, we had a lot of unboxing of smallwares, kitchenwares, and then right after that, we just jumped right into events. We had a lot of events that were right on the books, so it was kind of trial by fire, right in the beginning. We had food orders, alcohol orders, and all of our Pepsi orders were placed to service all of our events. First food and beverage event was held on April 7th, which consisted of 90 individuals, which was a stakeholder event. And our first client tasting was the Boys and Girls Club for their banquet, which was held in April. Our first inventory took place on April 30th, and that was Sunny, our chef, and our director of food and beverage, going through the walk-in, the freezer, the dry storage, all of the food items, and going through and figuring out exactly how much do we have, what's the value of all that inventory, and then when we do inventory this month, at the end of this month, we'll compare it to the inventory that was done at the end of last month, and that's where we'll get our food costs for our first, for May. And I just speak to tip agencies on here at the bottom too. So basically, just a short summary, with everything that we hosted, it created an opportunity for us to figure out ways to enhance the experience and service for our guests in the facility. May might be lacking in a little bit of events. We had a lot of events in April. We won't have as many in May, but it gives us time to regroup, recost menus, fix the things that we feel needs to be fixed, put our policies and procedures in place, and kind of work with our team a little bit more. But overall, I feel like April was a very successful month for us. There was a lot of hours, a lot of training, but I feel very happy with how our team did this past month. Any questions?
Neil, thank you very much.
Okay.
Very good. And now, an update on the project and operating budget, and believe it or not, he's here in spirit with our good board member, Mr. Schweitzer. Update on the operating budget.
Yeah, so Jason couldn't be here today, so he asked me just to touch on a couple of things. If you want to look at the comparison of the budget and actual expenses first. I think the invoices moving forward that the finance committee approves are getting smaller every meeting. I would expect we'll probably have less than 5 invoices to approve. You'll notice amounts remaining to be spent on a few of these things. There's actually surplus money left over. So the board will have to decide whether we want to use that money, or maybe other things, i.e. Larry Museum or whatever. So it's just something to take note of. If you guys do have any questions, you can try to answer them, or I'll relay them to Jason. But overall, the budget's still healthy. And not showing too much left. The project's pretty much complete. And then the illustrative project cash flow still showing really strong food and beverage numbers. I would venture to say Buell County is in the top 3 in the state with food and beverage tax collections, which is crazy. A lot of people are stopping, coming through Saratoga eating from out of county, out of state. So those numbers are still strong. Other than that, that's pretty much it.
Illinois must really, you never eat or drink at home.
Yeah. That's what
But we love them. Any questions? Mayor?
Nope. Good.
Thank you, Chris. Item 5.4, an update on the Larry Bird Museum. Terry Conn.
Switch with Chris, and get this report out in finance report next.
Okay, good.
Actually, good news on the Larry Bird Museum. I have, passed out just a one-page updated design with, our last meeting. We went downstairs, looked at, moving one of the walls to allow for additional storage. Sorry, Brian. You'll want this as well. So you'll see, when looking at the plans, the storage wall, most of the design features that were presented to this board previously are still in this. As well as you'll find the basic scope. Hilferty put together a cost estimate for everything from, and you'll see kind of as you look at this, one, they've broken it out by areas. So when you look at one on your design for arrival, you'll see the cost for that area of the design. Same with 2, the Larry Bird Ball, obviously the shooting area, the cost associated with that. So this will allow you to look at each kind of exhibit and design. The grand total this time is just under 900,000. A couple things I want to point out is that it does include line item 68. We did ask Hilferty to put in just a dollar amount for media acquisitions. At this time, we really don't know what that cost is going to be, but having some money set aside for the basic scope, we felt was needed in there. This does not include any enhancements. The enhancements, if you want information on any enhancements, I can give that to you, but considering this is well within the budget, the museum committee would like for you to review this. And we would hope then to have a motion at next month's meeting to approve the design. So if you could, if you want to send me any recommendations, please do so, and then the museum committee will meet next month to go over those items. So we wanted everyone to have sufficient time to really look at it, review it, and give your opinion. It is still fluid. This is not set in stone. Once we get RFPs, what we needed to obviously approve the design, then we'll send out RFPs. So depending on what cost is, some items we may not even be able to get. We won't know that until obviously as we move along with the project. Shelley, if you want to give an update as far as the collection, because I would like to note that this scope and design was updated since Hilferty came and looked at all the cataloging of the information. Shelley, you want to give just a brief
Sure. I took Hilferty over to Greg's personal residence to actually be able to see with their own eyes the collection that he has over there. Up to this point, I showed them photos, they kind of got a general idea, but they were actually able to see it with their own eyes. They took several measurements of some of the key pieces that they think are going to be the most valuable for the museum. I know that Mark took hundreds and hundreds of photos over there so that he could have kind of an idea of the collection as a whole as well. He's in the process of trying to narrow down some of those key pieces that he thinks are going to be the most important. And then once we get those narrowed down, then we'll move forward with also setting up an additional call with Greg to kind of get a little bit more of the background behind each individual piece so that when we go to put these on display, we have the story behind each individual item to kind of tell why this is an important piece. So, I think that they were surprised. I think that they were very surprised to see exactly how much that is actually sitting there. Because like I said before, they had seen photos, but until they had actually been able to see it with their own eyes, I don't think that they realized the magnitude of what was actually over there.
I would agree with that comment. Several of the display cases were added.
Right.
Additional display cases were added once they did see the items.
Right.
Anything else you want to add, Shelley?
Not right now, until we're a little bit further along as far as, right.
One of, there's two other items I just wanted to bring up that the museum committee, one, we have asked our owner rep, Mark Madursky, to give us a timeline. Obviously, Hilferty, and Brian would, if you wanna speak up on, I guess, the timeline and your idea. They will need time to, once the design is approved, to update the plans. They will need to, there's time that's gonna be involved with, reviewing RFPs, and then they will have to, actually build a lot of the display cases. So it's not gonna happen overnight. We're still, I would say, 12 months out at least from having an open museum, but.
I don't want to speak for Hilferty. As far as construction goes, I think once we receive approval of the shell construction, we're estimating 3 to 4 months to have it complete. And I would say we'll probably, so say it gets approved today, we're close to the 1st of June, we would probably start work around the 1st of July, so we can get some materials on order, get them coming to where we can kind of start the work and be able to complete it without having to pull off site. So if we start the 1st of July, should be done by the end of October. Our conversation previously about Hilferty is, my understanding, just sitting in coordination meetings with them, is this set of drawings is probably at a 50% complete level, as far as they've kind of identified the components, but really taking it to the next level of design where everything's dimensioned, elevations are drawn, and you could really hand that to a fabricator, and they can see exactly what kind of wiring, light fixtures, security features, whatever goes into each component. That's the detail that I think is lacking in their design, as I understand it. So, I think there's a certain amount of time that's going to be required to further and complete the design, and then really comes the procurement process of notification, bidding, evaluation, acceptance, and then you get to the point of fabrication. And then once that's done, then you get to installation. So, you know, I think there's several more months of work. And again, I'm kind of talking on behalf of Hilton.
I think you're right on with, this is still considered their preliminary design, obviously not a final design until this gets approved, then you're right, then they can finalize all the minute details. And knowing Hilferty and working with CSO, they will, you know, obviously take their time in getting all that absolutely correct. With that, one last item, I am going to ask Baker Tilly to work on a kind of a side budget for the museum. If you noticed in the finance report, where we consider the buckets for the museum, again, originally we had slated 1.5 million. With, to date, we have spent just over 300,000. And with the film going on the windows and what Garmong has left to do, is estimated at about 350,000. So I believe, is that part of our resolution today that, or we're going to look at that, approving that 350,000? John?
Yeah.
Okay. So that gets us at about 650,000 in cost. So what would remain would be, you can do the math, about just under $850,000 is what's going to remain for the design. And Hilferty did put together their cost estimate, which was right in that ballpark at $890,000. So still a little bit of adjustments to be made, but absolutely, I think that we're really close to staying within the budget on the museum.
Can I ask a question? Terry, does that 897 take into account their design fee?
It does not.
So there's another 232 or whatever the number is on top of that?
Based on their last invoice, I had it calculated at around 120 left, because we did sign an invoice today for the preliminary design. So some of that came off, but correct, there is still design fees to be paid out of that. We also still have in our budget design services, so there is still money left out for design services that could possibly come out of that bucket versus the museum.
55,000.
Right. We've all known that 1.5 placeholder is not very realistic.
It's a placeholder is what it is.
So
That's,
we're all included.
I think that's our guiding dollar amounts. As you know, Chris mentioned, we have several items that amounts to be remaining overall that we're not going to use. But we definitely want to still keep everything within that scope of, in that ballpark.
Terry, I had a Zoom with Jason and Kyle yesterday. They're expecting your phone call.
Okay.
So,
Alright.
just let you know.
Yep, I'll give them a call, but I just at least wanted to let this board know, review anything, and then again, hopefully at the next month's meeting, we can move forward with getting the design approved, so Hilferty can finalize, get us a final drawing and design.
What we do have today is a change request, change order in the amount of $346,000.
Yeah, I did not prepare a resolution for that. You may recall that if it's not food and beverage expenditure, which is not, it's the executive committee's approval that is required. Now, that doesn't mean you can't bring it to this board and request the entire board to approve, which you probably should do at this point since you didn't approve it at the executive committee meeting the other day. So I didn't prepare a formal resolution. There needs to be a motion to approve the change order.
I can provide, let's see, for those that were not in the exec committee. Brian with Garmong had listed, Emily, if you wanna look at that. The mayor saw it, Chris saw it. These are the list of items of that 350,000 that's going to complete the museum for Hilferty, then to get everything fabricated and customized. These were already estimates, I believe, as far as our expenses. These were expenses that were expected. We just did not have a dollar amount. So in with that package is the breakdown of every item, what that cost is. The Unistrut, busing, lighting, electrical is the majority of it. The film, this was discussed at last month's meeting. Garmong has looked at different options. Obviously, the film that we're looking at has 99% UV blockage and will protect the items in the collection, and that is included in that 350.
So when you get to new business, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, I guess what I would recommend is that you be sure that the keeper of the minutes has a copy of that, and that there's just a motion to adopt it.
Probably the biggest item is that Unistrut, is that correct? Right.
That's one of them. I mean, that's just under $40,000, and it's a heavy steel grid system that goes, kind of at the ceiling level, that allows this electrical bus duct to mount to. I mean, it's a structural framework, so you can hang things off of it, support things from it.
I think part of that is the cage for the basketballs.
Correct.
The TV station has used something like that for years, haven't you, John? So did you.
For lights.
Lights, yeah.
We do it a lot in hospitals, like operating room booms and different things where you need support above the ceiling. So we're very familiar with it. That's a big item. The window film, I think, is 18,000. Of the 346, I think about 160,000 of it is just electrical related. So that's 40% of the total cost, roughly.
The executive committee thought it was necessary to do this today because there's such a long lead time, for instance, on the doors. It's 20 weeks to get the doors here. So it's important to get the thing ordered or him started to order these things, as quickly as possible. Right?
And if I could, just so everybody's clear, I mean, when we're done, the space will look like a finished shell with the exception of flooring. The flooring has been excluded at Hilferty's request because they are carrying money.
It is in their scope,
It's
correct?
in their scope. So I just want everybody to understand that when that's finished, it'll still be a bare concrete floor at the request of Hilferty.
Were you able to determine if the UV film avoids the warranty on the glass?
I talked to several people, one being Old Castle, which is the manufacturer of the glass. He kind of played it safe and said, we don't recommend installing things. However, I've worked here for 25 years and we've never had an issue of a window film damaging the glass. I think that's their disclaimer, just to, see why. I also talked to this company, Solar Concepts, that is the film installer. They're out of Indianapolis. That's really all they do. And he said they've never had a problem with it. And they've installed it, I thought it was unique, in Idle-George and Newfields museums in Indianapolis. So I felt like that was confirmation that we're kind of headed down the right path as far as the film. So, if I told you I talked to the glass company and they said, absolutely no problem, we want you to install the film, I'd be lying to you. But I also was able to kind of read between the lines and did walk away thinking This is a bad idea. So
It probably avoids the warranty, but is a safe product.
that's the way I interpreted it, yes.
It's less expensive as well as shades, 50% less expensive.
Okay.
Any other questions as far as museum goes?
Appreciate you taking the lead on that, moving us down the road.
Yeah, you can stick with museum also.
It's all good.
Yeah.
So I guess the chair is open.
Well, you got one more, you got one more. old
That's
business.
next, John.
Yeah,
You still
Oh,
got, you got new business.
yeah, just, I'll give you a short report on what we've been up to.
Okay.
So, since your last meeting, we worked with the auditor to close out the Nations Group contract, so they're officially not, being compensated at this point, with this last payment to them, so their work is done. We did finalize and confirm all your insurance coverage, so everything with Spectra and with the county, is in good shape. We have been working with Spectra Legal to try to get a final management contract amendment. Hopefully this last iteration, which John just signed, and was authorized to sign previously, just changes what, it's consistent with how we've practiced, which wasn't in the operating agreement, removing the pre-operating expense procedures, changing some of the definitions, incorporating your minimum balance of $450 in their operating account. So all pretty standards, addressing insurance to include liquor liability insurance. So it was just a cleanup on the original. So I'll get the signed version from you all today to Neil, so she can run it hopefully up the ladder one final time and get an actual live signature on it. We completed your service mark protection, so your logo, if somebody starts printing up, in China, starts printing up t-shirts with the Terre Haute Convention Center on it, which actually happens. We can get Google to take it down. And so if you want to print up memorabilia, et cetera, that's protected now. We do have a vacancy with Steve's stepping down, touch base with the mayor on the status of that here after the meeting. We did get appointment papers in the hands of the mayor here, just working on that. We have one outstanding issue which remains outstanding, that's the easements, and John witnesses my frequent contact with both the owner and the attorney for the owner, who apparently they can't get together to try to make some decisions on this. We'll stay on that and remain on my things to do list and still complete. Two items that will be transpiring, we're gonna coordinate with Hilton on the RFP and bidding process, because all of those expenditures will be under the public bidding laws. So perhaps at your next meeting, you might let me know when it is, and I can participate in that, and just coordinate with them, or I can reach out to Mark and the Hilton team separately, either way. And then it just occurred to me as Neil was talking about the inventory, the micro-mark, or whatever the name of it is, micro-name, inventory, that probably all of those assets need to be included on the county's inventory list that has to be submitted on an annual basis, Jim. So I'll just mention that to you, along with your internal reporting that has to go.
What's the value on those?
We probably need to talk about, inventory and finance. I guess there have been some laws that have changed in the past regarding capital and inventory and things, so we probably need to maybe have a sit down and
Touch
talk.
base on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when we do inventory everything in the facility, you'll get a copy of that, and it's everything from these tables and chairs to china and flatware, and every single thing gets inventoried annually.
Don't hold me to it, I have to look, I think it's $5,000 minimum. If it's equipment that's valued at $5,000 or more, it has to appear on the county's inventory.
The county's policies, I think it's $20,000 that will capitalize equipment.
Okay. I'll,
But the departments, keep separate inventory as
Right.
tables and laptops and stuff,
Right.
but
Are you talking, well, and I'm just assuming, State Board of Accounts related numbers, which
Yes.
is 5,000 for the city? I mean, that's.
I believe it's 5,000 for everybody.
So yes,
It's a
just
state
need
board
to
of
figure
accounts
out,
issue.
yeah.
Yeah, because these are, for some purposes, you're a separate entity from the county, and for some purposes.
Yeah, that's what gets weird, that's what I don't understand exactly,
What's the
you know.
term again that they use, Jim? You know, instead of,
capital,
no, the entity interpretation.
component unit.
Component unit.
Okay.
Component unit. So
They-
for some purposes you are, for some purposes you're not.
Yeah, that's what gets a little.
And my point is,
They're
I
pretty.
believe for your reporting on assets, I think that needs to happen at the minimum is 5,000, so.
Well, no, they, the Board of Accounts will allow the individual units to set their.
Raise that.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can, I've seen them size 100,000 before.
Okay.
But they do want you to keep an inventory of the little stuff, but the capital portion that goes on the financial statement.
Right, that's not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the internal control
Okay.
report that's required by State Board of Accounts. So something different than capitalizing the asset. It's an inventory. We'll straighten it out and be sure we're all on the same page.
Any questions from board's attorney? Okay, thank you, Mr. Bosman. Item number 6, new business. 6.1, the change order request that we discussed. Now it's time for approval or disapproval.
So let's review a little bit, just for the sake of the record. We've got a $1.5 million museum budget, and it's kind of broken out into 3 parts. One is the soft cost for design and, consulting fees and all that. One part is the construction, if you will, and then the third part is equipping the museum with all the display cases, et cetera. And so I still feel good after hearing the reports again today and yesterday, that we're right at the budget, could be a little over at the end of the day or not. So I think we're right on track of where we thought we were, considering this started many years ago, and here we are today with costs going up and everything else. I feel really good about what was presented to us, the $346,152 from Garmong to do the build out portion of this. And obviously we want to move this along, I think, and that was kind of the general consensus, but obviously in executive session, we couldn't make those decisions yesterday, but wanted to do that here in this setting. I personally would like to move forward with it to get Garmong going on it and lock in those prices before costs go up and get that part done as we move into what Terry told us about the next thing with Hilferty. So I would make the motion to approve this change order to move ahead with the construction component of the museum at a total cost of $346,152.
I'll second the change request number 125.
Yeah, I do have that.
Pass that down.
Any questions? All right. You've heard the motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? So moved.
Can I clarify one thing, Mr. President? So you were not in executive session yesterday. It was a committee meeting of the executive committee. It was noticed. I just wanted the record to be correct, and Howard got confused and said, hey, you can't have an executive session unless you cite the codes. It's not an executive session, it's a committee meeting of the executive committee. So, sorry if that wasn't clear.
Yeah.
Got that down?
I don't think, I get it now. I don't think it was clear, but that's fine. We followed
You
the
must have lost
rules of
something
the,
in translation.
well, we followed the rules of an executive session, let's put it that way. And so here we are
Okay, that's
today
fine.
doing it officially.
Brian, if I may, in Nations Group's absence, I just want to talk procedure, because what we did in the past was, an action like this would be taken, and then we would prepare an AIA change order to reflect this change. We would send that to Nations Group. They would typically sign it themselves. They would confer with, the executive committee or whomever. They would sign it and send it on. In their absence, we'll prepare the change order and present it to John.
And I'd like to see it too.
Okay.
You can just mail it to us if that's okay with the board, for John to sign those directly. I don't see any problem with it.
Okay, yeah, we'll take care of that.
Okay. Deal.
All right. Any other new business? Any other business?
I'm gonna work with Jason Similar and Jim and Tennille. Tennille, you don't know yet, but I have to provide a budget to the county, as Jim calls it, a component of whatever I call quasi-government, but, I have to submit a budget to the June 6th, I believe, or maybe the week after, so just let everybody know.
Budget of what?
It's really vague. I mean,
Whatever you're operating.
yeah, whatever operating expenses are really.
So you have to have that by June, in June?
Oh, no, like, county government's so difficult.
You're submitting it for them to review.
Yeah,
it.
to review it, and then it'll be approved in September.
So your agenda, your official items of agenda indicate that you're going to, discuss, you're gonna present it here, I think, in July. We can always change it, same which y'all planned earlier.
For some reason, our council has moved it up a month.
Yeah, July 20th was the draft CIB operating budget presentation, and then August 17th, adoption. We can change that. If
When we
that's-
get back with you, when we
Okay.
confirm the date and time for sure, I think it's June 6th, though, we find out.
Budget meetings start June 21st.
June 21st, there you go. Well, so it'll be somewhere around that time.
But I don't know when the commissioners appear, because I
I
don't
don't
know
either.
the schedule, so. I have to see.
Anyway, we'll figure it out.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, let us know if it needs to be on the agenda for next, sounds like it does need to be on the agenda for the next board meeting.
Our next CIP meeting's on the 22nd.
No.
Do
Right.
we need it prior to that?
I don't think so.
So are you going to have to project out for the next year then?
Martell
Because
and
that
I
was
are
where-
already working on it. So we only have a month of history. But what I'm doing, so Martell's working on expenses. So we know what the lighting bill is in the garage, the power bill. We know what, and we've had, a power bill for the month of operating here, give or take, obviously it's gonna fluctuate. So we're trying to round up, what do we think all of our expenses are gonna be? So she's working on the expense side, I'm working on the revenue side, and I'm just looking at, I'm going through and going, okay, if we have so many meetings that are bringing in X amount of dollars, how many do I think we're gonna do each month? Same thing with banquets. We only have a month of history, so it's hard to kind of really gauge, so it's really kind of taking the budget that we presented this year, adding 3 months on it, and then going through and refiguring some of the numbers that we had in that other budget point, okay, so I think these numbers might be a little high based on what we're getting right now, and going through all of those months and event types. So we started working on that last week, so I'm hoping that we'll have it done, at least a first draft internally, because we have to have that done maybe this week, and then that needs to go to our corporate, and we need to sit down and talk through some of that with them, so I'm hoping that we'll be right on target for when you
Yeah, I mean,
need it, I guess.
last year when I did it, it was 10 minutes and I was done, so it's really not that big of a deal.
And if I can add, there's one more element to this that we're not gonna solve today, but it's related, and that is Spectra's operating agreement has a financial incentive fee component that they receive 20% over, 20% of the amount of income over a set benchmark. We have no means to determine that
Correct.
with any reliability, what that benchmark should be. I would anticipate that, and it includes the stub year, includes this year, okay? So for this 8-month operating year. So I anticipate that at the end of the year, after we have 8 months of operating data, we may be able to present to you all enough information that you can say, okay, this is what we anticipated coming in, and this is what came in, and you're gonna get 20% of that. Or maybe we decide we don't have enough information for that, we don't do it for the stub year, we do it for the following year.
Right.
We'll go through the lengthy amendment processing
Right.
with your legal department.
And I think we had written in some language that pertains to that benchmark that pushed it back.
We did,
Okay.
yeah, in the management agreement.
Mhm.
Is that gross or net?
Net. Let me check on that. All right.
I think it's gross.
It's
I think
on
most
here.
of what we do is
It's
based on
gross,
revenue.
you're correct, it's gross, but it excludes gross food and beverage. So it's gross revenue, but excludes gross food and beverage, that's the way that reads. And then there's a qualitative incentive fee of $25,000, up to $25,000, which you all just say, you did a good job, we'll give you $15,000 or $25,000. Or you didn't do that great of a job, we'll give you zero.
I hope you did a good job.
I know you did. Just stating options.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Chris, when do you, so you're gonna find out when
I don't
you
know.
need it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll let you know. I thought it was
Okay.
June 6th, so,
Okay.
but Karen's never wrong, so. 100% true.
Any other questions, comments?
Let everybody know.
Our next regular board meeting is for June the 22nd, unless Chris says you gotta meet before then. So,
I wanted to mention about that AIC award. I talked to John about the Association of Indiana Counties, among other awards at their annual conference, gives an award for intergovernmental cooperation. And I think this place is a perfect example of what should be. I've got the application here and the instructions. I think John's talked to RJL about, doing an application for us.
that's a good idea.
It's due June 8th and supposed to be signed by a elected official in one of the AIC affiliate counties. But I think this is deserving of that award. City, county,
Well, we could have both of these fellas here, sign it, the mayor.
That's good. I'm glad you brought that to our attention. Be a great example. Let's get our jail to do that.
I'd be happy to write a letter of support on that too, having witnessed it.
All right. If there is no other business to conduct, we are adjourned.
Okay.